Perfect. Hey guys, nice to connect to you all again after a month. Thank you for dialing in and tuning into the video. Uh, Hope you all have been doing great. So this October session, we have three amazing speakers joining us. We'll go through them, session by session, and we'll introduce them. Before we get into the actual event, a few usual callouts. Um, Firstly, thanks to our sponsors, Decision Science, Happy Marketeer, and eClerks, without whom it wouldn't have been possible. So thank you for sponsoring us throughout the year. Thank you for you, community members, for being a patron and supporting us throughout, joining us, taking time off on a monthly basis, and connecting with us. In terms of the actual agenda, it'll be the usual agenda where we have two speakers talking on very relevant topics, and then we'll have a tech demo session as well. Similar to last time, we'll have vouchers given away for the best question asked during each session. So speakers will get to select the best question. So make sure you ask your questions through the YouTube chat. And lastly, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel and the meetup group for you to be notified when we put up the subsequent events. And also when we start going live, you get auto notified, right? We are also looking for volunteers and organizing team members to join us. So if you're interested and if you want to join the DOS team, so feel free to reach out to any of us through our channels and we'll take it from there. Cool. Those were the usual intro announcements. So now we'll get into the first session. First session is by Neeraj from GoPay. So Neeraj is the growth lead at GoPay. Malaysia. He's dialing in from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you for joining us, Neeraj. He'll be talking about growth marketing and how is it practiced at GoPay and his thoughts around growth marketing as well. How is it different from performance marketing, etc. Neeraj himself is, very passionate marketer, and he's very, number guy, if I could say that. And he's also, he's joining us from Kuala Lumpur, as I mentioned. And I'll hand it over to him to take us through his topic. Thank you, Neeraj.
All right, welcome. Thanks for that, Hari. Let me just get my screen started. Sure. Just let me know if you guys can already start seeing the presentation. Yeah. All right. So like Hari said, hi everyone. I'm Neeraj, and I work at GoPay today, and I do growth marketing with GoPay. I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit first before going into what we are all here to listen today. Right? I've been working for 6 years now. I started out with Maxis, and that's where I met one of the organizers of those, Yun. I was doing product marketing with Maxis, which is a telco in Malaysia. And then I moved on to do a short stint with Zalora in customer analytics. And then I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to work with Gojek under their subsidiary for now, GoPay, to do growth marketing. So just before I dive into Gojek and GoPay and growth marketing, right? Just for anyone who is not aware of GoPay or even Gojek, Gojek is a super app. We have pretty much every other service that you can think of on the app, from food delivery to ride to car hailing, parcel delivery, you name it. And just in the spirit of how Gojek does pretty much everything under the sun, GoPay does the same thing. I like to refer to GoPay as the Android of payment platforms. They pretty much have anything under the sun. You have insurance, you have loans, microloans, online loans, donations, payments for parking, payments obviously within the Gojek app itself. All of those payments are taken care by GoPay if the user chooses to use GoPay. There's this really interesting feature now where you can even cash out from GoPay directly from the ATM. So many different features. And the philosophy so far at GoPay has been to expand use cases to as many different use cases possible, especially to Indonesians. And then, as we expand it horizontally, it is then down to marketing and growth marketing to really drive these services among all of the users that we have on Gojek today. So I think this is a nice way for me to just segue now into growth marketing, right? So the first time I did growth marketing, or I spoke about growth marketing to my friends, they literally gave me this similar look. They were like, isn't the whole point of marketing to grow? Why are you stating the obvious? And they're not exactly wrong, right? Marketing as we know it today serves particularly that function. Marketing does extremely well in generating awareness for a product and subsequently acquiring users for that particular product. But I believe that's generally where marketing can stop. Just because there isn't the entire from the product going and trying to interface with all the marketing different platforms, it's not exactly a very seamless journey, is it? So that's exactly where growth marketing comes in. Growth marketing helps marketing to accelerate the user down the product funnel. So as we can see, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. That's what growth marketing does. The way we do it, and I'll go into that slightly later, but largely is using internal systems, using CRM, and sometimes even leveraging on the elements that marketing can help us with to drive the user further down this product funnel. There is really no magic pill, though, to drive a user down this funnel. Most of the times, what might work for Uber may not work for Gojek or even GoPay, and what might work for Gojek, GoPay may not work for Grab. Therefore, to really make sure that we are doing initiatives that are truly useful in order to drive user down that product funnel, what growth marketers generally resolve to is experiments. I'm pretty sure a lot of you all here will already know what experiments are. So I'm just going to give a very broad view of what I understand from my experience in GoPay, right? Experiments are complete or hacky treatments. So what I mean by hacky treatments is essentially we put together multiple different products to stitch an experience together just because we think that that type of experience will help move the user down the funnel. That experience may not be present in the product today, but that is the whole point of doing growth marketing, so that we can discover different type of experiences so that and move user down the funnel. Sorry, just give me a minute. The way that we start our experiments begins with identifying a population. Once we identify the population, we will sample that population and create this is a very simplified manner, but we'll create two distinct groups. One is the control group, one's a target group. The control group is generally a group where we don't give any treatment of any sorts. And the target group is who we give a particular treatment to. This way, what we manage to kind of get on a very high level at least is that any sort of confirmation bias out of doing something is eliminated, right? Because these users are technically of the same population, so we believe that they will behave similarly. Therefore, when we do a experiment on the target group, we expect to see some difference, and then we have the control group to essentially negate any sort of confirmation bias that we might just get, any positive impact that we might get just because we did an initiative. So this is essentially the basics of what growth marketing is: continuous experimentation to understand what we can do best to move user down the product funnel once they've been acquired by marketing. So a quick fun fact before I go down, right? Gojek as a group, this is not even GoPay yet, this is just Gojek, as a group does more than 365 experiments a year. And most of these experiments result in failure. In fact, in my experience, I've been doing this for about 8 months now, 90% of my experiments result in failure. It's honestly, it's kind of sad place to be sometimes, because no matter what you do, you don't really see an end result. But then you have about 10% that actually work, and that's where the real impact is, because we take that 10% of experiments that work, and the path generally can go down like two ways. We can either firstly do a full-scale campaign. If it's like, if the products are already available for us and the experience can be stitched fairly robustly, then we can just go on to do a full-scale campaign and use automation along with CRM to roll this out to the entire user base, or at least the user base that is most relevant. But in cases where we do the hacky manner, which is majority of the time, and also the part that I love the most, hacking together different products and bringing them together, we then start talking to product managers to start seeing what their backlog is like, and start implementing this into their backlog. So obviously, product managers already have a very, very strong backlog generally. So what we need to do is we need to put it in their product backlog. We need to justify to them as to why this particular initiative will drive a particular OKR or a KPI or a North Star metric. And once we do that and we get confirmation, then there is a potential for this insight or this intervention that we found to actually be embedded into the product itself. So that is one way how growth marketing helps grow products itself. I've said quite a bit, but maybe this would make it a little bit more clearer as to what a growth marketer would like, how the process of growth marketing or even running an experiment would generally start like. So as with any problem in a company, we would start with a problem statement. And problem statement is really important, right? Because we really need to figure out what are we solving. We want to be extremely sure that the problem statement is concise, precise, and also worthwhile solving. So we start with the process of really identifying what the problem statement is. Then we go on the process of forming hypotheses of why do we think that this problem exists. We might use data, we might use intuition, we might use past learnings, or we might even use trends. Generally, when it comes to competitive elements, this is where we rely more on trends. And once we form an hypothesis or a reason, this is why we think this problem is occurring, that's where experiment starts coming in. Because, for example, if we say, if it's my gut feeling that is saying that this problem is existing because of that, then all I need to do is to make sure that this is correct by running an experiment, right? I can implement my intuition in the form of control and target group, design that entire experiment, implement it on them, then make sure that I've identified the right variables that would act as the right proxy for this experiment and to measure success. And once I've designed that experiment, I can just run it, get the output in the form of obviously the variables, and then finally I come to a step called statistical significance. I'm going to take a minute or two just to focus a little bit on statistical significance, because in GoPay, even Gojek, we focus a lot on this particular part of the experiment. So while designing the experiment is very important, measuring the variables are very, very important, we do believe and we take a democratic approach to all ideas, right? Any idea is a good idea and we should try it. But what makes or breaks that idea finally is whether the results are statistically significant or not. So just coming to statistical significance, right? I had a little bit of a tough time actually when I first went into GoPay and I tried to understand this, because the way the realm that I came from, so I came from product marketing and Maxis, and then I did customer analytics at Zalora. Statistical significance really wasn't a thing. When we did marketing, we rolled it out, and if we saw a positive uptake, we attributed it entirely to the marketing event or to the marketing campaign. And we said, yeah, fantastic, it worked. We should do this again in the future. And when I came to GoPay, it was a bit different because there were times where I would observe that my treatment group actually did perform better than my control group, but but it's still not enough. And this is where statistical significance comes in. In a very basic term, the way that I've explained statistical significance to myself is that when we see a certain uplift of the treatment versus control, that uplift needs to have a less than 5% chance of occurring due to just random error or chance itself. Essentially, if I say that by doing a particular treatment, I observed a 20% uplift in revenue versus control, I need to test that out statistically and make sure that 20% has a less than 5% chance of occurring due to pure less than 5% probability likelihood occurring due to chance. And this again comes back to the process of random sampling, as we explored earlier, whereby when we sample the population, we will get elements where maybe the target group or maybe even the control group might have a few individuals that are able to skew the results in a slightly more positive manner or a slightly more negative manner, right? And to negate this skewness, this is where we try to make sure that any uplift that we see occurs has a very, very low chance of occurring due to a random error. And only once we are confident that the uplift that we've seen actually is statistically significant, only then we then go to the next step of rolling it out, as mentioned earlier, to like a campaign or even a product feature for that matter. Now, like I said just now, right? Like a huge bunch of our experiments actually just end up failing, and that's fine. From failure, we try to learn, but what we generally do is we do not just give up on the problem statement if one solution has failed. Neither do we go and refine that approach. There's no real reason to refine the approach because prior to launching the experiment itself, we discuss the experiment with multiple stakeholders, and we will make sure that a lot of opinions are taken into account before the experiment is rolled out. So we don't really go down the path of refinement. Instead, we go down the path of exploration, whereby we explore different solutions so that the likelihood of us to find a solution that is, the best possible solution is much higher, rather than going down the path of refinement where we might just miss the best possible solution. So this is the general philosophy when it comes to growth marketing at GoPay. So I've said quite a bit about growth marketing and how we do it at a very broad scale. But is this really, really important? And to be honest, this might not be very, very important for all companies, right? But in the case of Gojek, and I might even say in the case of Grab, Uber, Venmo, PayPal, these are quite important functions just because when we want to grow at scale, there are generally a few levers that we can use, right? And I like to broadly categorize these levers as shiny levers and not so shiny levers. Shiny levers are levers that all of us love, right? Discounts, markdowns, vouchers, cashback. And a lot of the times, I find my friends asking me, how do you guys do it? Like, are you guys even making money, right? And I'm sure all of you have asked this question, like, are the likes of Grab, Gojek, are they even making money at this point with the amount of discounts and vouchers and cashback that's going up? And if any of you have had that thought, that's a really, really good thought, right? Because if we continue doing shiny levers, if we continue using, shiny levers to grow at scale, we will definitely lose money. In fact, these are not sustainable at all, right? Discount, markdown, vouchers, cashback, or anything of that sort. Where sustainability really comes in, and something where I like to call is the growth marketing playground, is really in things like improving product experience, looking at where users are dropping off, and trying to see if we can do something to improve the product experience just at that particular drop off. Improving messaging, for example, the copies. We found that social kind of messaging performs way better than just a messaging that says, hey, you've got a voucher. So for example, hey, why don't you help a driver out today by taking a ride? Instead of, hey, you got a 9,000 rupiah voucher, use it today. For example, things like that. Timing of that voucher, time of day, and triggers, right? As the Gojek app has every single event is basically being tagged using our software called CleverTap, and we therefore can actually trigger a particular push notification or any sort of engagement based on an event that a customer takes within the app itself. So if we can improve messaging using triggers, we'll definitely like to go down that path. Ideating and researching customer problems such that new problems that we could potentially solve for our customers. That is definitely one way that growth marketing tries to approach new problems as well. Churn save measures, as this should be pretty common across many different verticals and industries. CTAs at the most contextual journey, especially for payments. Users usually don't think about payment until they have to pay, and therefore for GoPay especially, buttons and CTAs are very, very important at the checkout phase to make sure that a user uses GoPay. And new revenue opportunities by studying clickstream data. The app constantly changes. There will be different areas in the app where users will congregate. And this gives us an opportunity to capitalize on those areas by maybe putting our promotion in that area or maybe putting a new product feature in that area. So these are all the extremely not very shiny areas where growth marketing generally works in, so that we can create a sustainable way of growing at scale instead of just relying on discounts, markdowns, etc. And what we've also found is that these not so shiny methods tend to create customers that have better long-term value. Customers then are staying with you because of the experience and not just because of the discount. So yeah, I guess that's all that I like to share about my journey so far with growth marketing at GoPay, and I'm happy to answer any questions now from anyone.
Thanks, Niraj. So we have lots of questions coming in actually. So the first question is actually from Pillai. How is your team structured for running so many experiments? Are there specific people for enabling these experiments, or the mainstream developers do it based on your requests?
Oh, so that's a great question. The way the team is structured is that in GoPay specifically, we operate across all the products in Gojek. So we have individual people supporting each pod. So if I were to give an example, Go Ride, transport, and then you have food, and then you have delivery. So for each of this pod, you have a growth lead that is embedded into the pod itself to help them with all of their problems pertaining payments. And then, we run experiments. So when I did say 365 experiments, I mean collectively, not per person. That would be crazy. But in my 7 or 8 months now in Gojek, I've done about 40 experiments already. So I think we can take that as a rough gauge of how many experiments per person would be going on. Yep.
So that's very interesting. In fact, I find it quite inspiring, and humbling as well to see how Gojek is leveraging this experimentation as part of, the way that you scale your product feature. Second question from Nicole, and I think that's a question that I myself would like to find out as well. What's the KPI performance evaluation for the team or individuals based on this experimental mindset for Gojek?
Oh, wow. Okay. So if you speak to any growth marketer, right, be it a Grab, be it a Gojek, or any other company that has, you'll hear one thing, which is North Star metric. That's like the key KPI. We all want to hit we all are ruthlessly, and I use the word ruthlessly because that's exactly the word I think describes the situation. We ruthlessly want to do everything and anything to hit the North Star metric. So our KPIs are generally focused around North Star metrics for the particular pod. So depending on which pod a particular growth ops or growth lead person is supporting, we'll then go and look at what their North Star metric is. In most cases, leadership has this broad enough mindset to make sure that metrics are defined such that it promotes collaboration between teams. So just to give you an example, food need not necessarily work with GoPay, because using GoPay as a payment gateway is worse off than using cash technically, right? Cash is a lot easier. Cash is king. Everybody has cash. So the way that KPIs are then designed is such that collaboration is embedded itself, and we all have to work together to achieve that, to achieve the KPI together. And all our KPIs are based on our pods that we service.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. We have third question from Hari, our co-organizer. Are all experiments related to only marketing channels, or do they expand to own channel as well, like email, SMS?
We when we want to move the user down the product funnel, we'll generally not only use our channels, which is push notification, inbox, any of the cards that you might see in the app. We are also free to use email. Unfortunately, email doesn't work very well for us, but that could just be an Indonesia thing. And we use social media a lot. So if in any of our experiments we hit more than 200 or 300,000 users, then we start using social media as well, just to support us, because we have capabilities, right, to directly move the user from Facebook, Instagram, or even Google to the app itself via deep links.
Okay, we have fourth question from Gaurav. Is there a use case where this statistical model was modeled or implemented for GoPay, which is a Gojek foray into digital payments, the flavor of the season?
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that question properly. So is the question around implementing a statistical model for a growth marketing effort?
Yeah, maybe you can just share with us, an example where you use experimental, growth marketing approach for one of your GoPay challenges.
So when it comes to slightly bigger services like transport and food, those are our bigger services, and I'm guessing that's no surprise to anyone, right? There are statistical models in place which group customers in a certain buckets, and then we take that output from there and we run experiments on them just to see if the way that the model has classified those customers really do give an uplift of any sort or not. But in any case, if it doesn't, then we go back to the circle, work with data science again to reclassify these customers, the buckets that they sit in, and then conduct experiments again. In these sort of scenarios, we work very, very closely with the data science team. They work with us on classifying. We work on the designing of experiment and how we want to move forward with it. But there are already models in place right now that have gone through this stage and are already in production. But I can't really entirely share so much about that. But yeah, it's already being done and it has gone through the entire growth journey.
This is good to know. We have another. Yeah, so Gaurav, feel free to let us know in the chat if Niraj has answered your question. We have another question from TLI. How frequently do you engage in exercise or analysis to identify customer pain point? And what is your favorite tool or method for such identification?
So to be very honest, the way that we approach a customer pain point is firstly by the journey, at least for us, is we would have tried an experiment and we would have tried multiple different approaches. None of these approaches that are working, right? And then but as a growth marketer, you still want to push forward the agenda. So what we'll then do is we'll go to research. We'll talk to research, and we'll get research to do a quick survey for us. Research will come up with a questionnaire. So that's the great part about being in growth marketing, because you have access to the research team anytime you want to. They will engage with the users, get feedback, and that's where the process of really identifying a pain point starts. So if I may, right, one of the recent pain points that we're trying to solve is that users want to pay with GoPay when they accept delivery of their products using one of our delivery services, but they find it just easier to pay with cash because they are going out, they're going to meet the rider, they might as well just give cash and take the product. But in that entire process, what they also want is security. They only want to pay when they receive the product. So a pain point that we've identified over there is users want to pay, but they're just not getting the opportunity, and neither are we helping them build trust, which is ironic, because the whole point of doing digital payment is to build trust. So from this, what we are trying to do is we're trying to approach this problem in multiple different product variations, based again with the help of research. And then this is just the short journey of how we would move from, experimentation, identifying a problem, and then trying to see if we can work that out or not. As far as
so that brings me to the.
Sorry, I didn't answer the tools part. There is no specific tools that we use other than project management tools, really. We rely very heavily on our research team. I guess that is our tool. Yeah.
So that brings me to the next question, right? I'm sure there's, tons of questions and business problem, hypothesis that you want to test. So question from Nirav, what is the prioritization strategy that you use to decide which experimentation to run?
That's a really super question, right? Generally, before running the experiment itself, we would do a impact analysis, and from the problem statement itself, we'll already identify which either KPI, OKR, North Star metric, whatever you want to call it, right? Which ones of these that this particular problem, if we were to solve it, would which one of it would it move? And if we are already doing really well in that particular metric, then we probably deprioritize it, right? Because the general trajectory is positive. So I guess that's one way. But in cases where we have multiple different experiments that are put forward to us, then it's just down to impact, how much projected impact we can get. And the one that, in most cases, we don't need to prioritize. We really don't. We will try to push forward with as many experiments as we can. So that's at the expense of sleep and whatnot. But in a case where, we need to, then it's just down to impact.
Wow, that sounds like crazy, especially during, seasonal period when you have like tens of thousands of questions that you want to test. So that brings me to another question from Gaurav. What method is used to substantiate and establish that customer problems are indeed the right problem to work on? I think this is, quite crucial as well. Asking the right question and also identifying which are the problems that, it's worthwhile solving.
I'm really starting to think Gaurav is a product manager. So just say yes, you are. These are really product manager type of questions, right? I mean, I think that's a really good question, and I'll be very honest. I haven't had the experience today yet of prioritizing problems. These are generally these type of problem statements tend to come from product managers themselves. Product managers are the ones who really decide which type of problem they want to solve, because more often than not, a huge impact is formed at product level, right? A great product is where a great problem is solved. The growth marketing helps, but growth marketing cannot make a pretty bad product amazing. That's really not something I believe that we can do. So long story short, this is something that's done at the product management level. And I think there are a few factors that go into it. Of course, the number of people that we can impact, how it would look to our shareholders, if we were to have, of course, we have shareholders to answer to. And just finally, in the case of Gojek, how it really helps our riders, people, people who are riding with us, and not only our riders, but like people, our people, our marketplace people, right? People who are servicing this rides. How does it help them? All of this impact is taken account by product managers before they really decide if there is a problem that they want to solve.
Okay, that brings us to the last question from Jin Hui. We have 8 questions today. How does your team track experiment result end-to-end from marketing channel to eventual conversion?
That's like a super question. We utilize the high level TLDR. Tableau is our best friend. Second TLDR, BigQuery is our best friend. So we already have in-house systems which we use to run our experiments. It's called Go Campaign. This system is built so that we can experiment using all the possible levers that Gojek has. From Go Campaign, this data flows into BQ in, of course, a structured format. And then that data then obviously just comes out. BI helps us to update our Tableau dashboards. And that's how we really, the entire flow of data. It's, to be very honest, this entire flow involves three sets of people, right? Your backend people, your BI people, and obviously both. And this really just shows how collaborative an environment it is in GoPay, in Gojek. We work across functions anytime, whenever we are running anything. And I think, yeah, this is possibly one example to just show.
Okay, so I think that's all for Q&A. I just want to share that, Niraj and I actually went to the same university, and then we joined Maxis. And, it's so nice to see how your journey has been, from Maxis to Zalora to GoPay. Thank you again for sharing. And now we would like to, introduce our second speaker for the day. So if Niraj, you can just switch off your video. So our second speaker is actually Mudasir, from business director at Affle. He will be actually sharing how performance marketing has played such a pivotal role in driving growth for business, especially during this COVID period. Mudasir has over 15 years of industry experience, has been with Affle for 6 years, and is responsible for the business growth in Malaysia and Singapore. Very proud to have you, happy to have you today, Mudasir. So if you can just turn on your video and your, your audio, the floor is yours. Feel free to present now.
Thank you, Shion. Thanks for the kind words at the introduction. I hope you guys can see me.
Yes, Moody. Can you hear me, Moody? We need Neeraj to help us. Yeah, we need Neeraj to help us select the best question from the questions that he received.
Yes.
And while he's doing that, we just have a technical refresh to be done. So we'll tackle these both and start the second session. Neeraj, could you select the best question from your list?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Just
Thank you. While we refresh the stream. Thank you. Yeah, Neeraj, we're ready for you to select the question.
Neeraj is a tough one. There's 8 questions.
8 questions and 8 really great questions. But I mean, all of them are great. But if I had to choose one, it's probably got to be the one from Nicole, right? Obviously, probably.
Okay, congrats, Nicole. Thanks, Neeraj, for choosing the best question as well. So sorry, Mudasir, for interrupting your presentation. Now it's really your turn to actually present.
Not a problem. I'll just quickly share my screen. Just give me a second. You guys able to see the screen now?
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks again for the introduction, Shiyun, Hari, and giving me this opportunity to share the platform with all of you amazing people. Obviously the topic for the day that I'll be discussing, or at least sharing some experience on, would be beyond the ABCD categories. But to begin with, just do a quick rerun of the introduction part. So my name is Mudasir. I'm the business director at Affle. Been with Affle for the past 6.5 years. And I primarily work across 3 markets within Southeast Asia: Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines. A little bit about Affle as well. We are a public listed consumer intelligence driven mobile marketing platform. The core of the business is really to drive user acquisitions, engagements, transactions, and retention. And this is done via a number of our proprietary platforms, whether it is our own DMP on the data side, our programmatic platform, or the creative platforms that we have. And here you can see a picture of our founders, our senior management. At the time we went IPO last year. Happy days before the COVID thing happened. So yeah, coming back to the topic today, moving beyond the ABCD categories. And I think by ABCD over here, what we are really talking about is your usual suspects, the ones, the categories or the businesses that have seen tremendous amount of success over the years, over last year, year before, and so on and so forth. And how things, with the external influences, which were beyond anyone's control, have led to digital marketing or mobile advertising think beyond ABCD categories. So the idea of the presentation and the discussion is very much from a performance marketeer's point of view, or a performance marketing platform point of view, which Affle is, or at least a part of Affle is. Now, obviously, before I get into the ABCDs, I just want to also tell you that, obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of things have changed, and mobile marketing as an industry, as an ecosystem, has not been immune to it either. So it has deeply impacted this particular industry as well. Just to get started with, I just wanted to run everyone through, just give a rundown of what mobile marketing really entails from an Affle point of view. So it basically consists of 2 major, or I would say 2 broad elements. One is brand marketing, which, as the word would suggest, is about developing or growing the brand value, or the image, or brand awareness, so to speak. And then performance marketing, which is, on the other hand, driving the business and revenue growth. So these are the 2 main areas that we categorize our mobile marketing into today, at least from an advertising platform point of view. What exactly drives the mobile marketing ecosystem? There are various elements, there are various contributors, and it starts from the advertiser. I'm just going to take app marketing companies or app owners as an example. So any app owner, Neeraj was talking about, for example, GoPay, it would start from such companies, such advertisers. Then obviously it involves the platforms, whether we're using the network or the direct publisher platform, or a programmatic platform. And what are these platforms used for? Primarily acquiring users or retaining users. So user acquisition or retargeting. And then there are your MMPs and third-party tracking tools, the apps flyers, the adjusts, the branches of the world. Obviously they play a very, very vital role, especially when it comes to a performance marketing platform like Affle working with advertisers. This is a key element of that connect that brings us together. And then you have fraud analytics tools, which are very important as well, because as everyone would be aware of, it's a prevalent thing when it comes to mobile marketing, especially within the performance marketing area. So fraud continues to be an absolute pain, but there are remedies, there are newer tools coming up, there are new strategies coming up which are dealing with fraud in a much better way than it did last year or before that. But what we also see is that fraud is also becoming smarter. So this is a problem which is here to stay, and I think this fight is going to continue irrespective of what the scenario is. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier on, the app marketing part, and my focus is going to be primarily on these two things: app marketing as well as performance marketing for those apps. Performance marketing, as per Affle, and for Affle, plays a very, very vital and crucial role when it comes to app marketing for these advertisers. And that is how primarily we drive new user acquisition for our clients, which are the advertisers. And like I said, there's network and programmatic. And in a nutshell, what I can just give the audience a bit of an idea. When we are talking about network or direct publishers, we are talking about an ecosystem of publishers which drives user acquisition at very high scale, versus programmatic, which basically is driving or acquiring users, new users, through a real-time bidding process with very high quality. So it is a bit of a balance between scale and quality. Scale does not always give you the best quality, but the best quality type of a platform does not always give you the kind of scale you would need. Now, just a quick recap of what app marketing looked like in the pre-COVID era. I know it sounds like it was of the years gone by, but still definitely we can classify it as an era because currently we are looking at a lot of changes in strategies and approaches. Things were business as usual. It was going along just as per plans and strategies and marketing plans that companies had, how they needed to be executed, whether they were on a quarter-to-quarter basis or an annual basis. And the approach was very holistic for app marketers or these app economies, where it was a combination of driving brand advertising, performance advertising, on-ground advertising. So a lot of things were happening, and it was going as per plan. Also, the type of categories we saw which were really doing well, and this is again from a lens, from an Affle lens point of view. Travel was obviously doing really well. Hospitality industry, all your booking platforms, all your airline platforms, ride-hailing platforms, and many more were doing really well. That was traditionally the case. And what was the role of these direct publishers or networks and programmatic? Again, it was driving a balanced result. It was a balanced approach between high scale and high quality. That's how things were going, very static, as per plan. Ad fraud, of course, it was a lingering pain, and there were tools and techniques to handle it. Of course, like I mentioned earlier on, ad fraud was getting smarter, but so were the tools. And I think there's tons of examples that one can quote, whether it's AppsFlyer Protect 360 or DataVisor, etc. So a lot of these platforms and tools, in fact, Affle has its own fraud analytics tool as well, which is called MFAS. So a lot of these platforms were doing real-time fraud detection, elimination, and different types of fraud metrics were in place. So all of that was going business as usual. Now, what happened during COVID or right after we entered global lockdowns? And it pretty much happened concurrently across markets. What changed? The consumer appetite, obviously. And it's related to us as well, each one of us, and to all the consumers around the world. There was a major change in terms of what our requirements were, what we had the appetite for, because we were in a situation which was not seen before. It was kind of like turning out to be a World War scenario of modern times. So we were sitting at home. There was obviously in KL, we had lockdowns. Singapore, I'm sure, had lockdowns as well. So across markets, across the globe. As consumers, we had to rethink what our requirements were. We needed now to look for groceries to be delivered at our doorstep. We had a lot of time at home during the weekends, etc., not going out, so OTT platforms, etc., and we're going to talk about them a little later. What also changed was the advertiser approach, and of course it had to change because the advertiser was not immune to such situations as well. It was something where they had to really go back to the drawing board, and I'm sure Neeraj would agree with that. I mean, there would have been a strategy change which suddenly kicked in, where okay, this is what we had planned, and now, especially on the user acquisition and retention front, all those strategies had to be rethought of, depending on whether you fell into the ABCDs or beyond the ABCDs. The impact really was, going back to re-strategizing, replanning the entire thing, how you want to acquire users, what you want to show to the users, and what type of users you want to get. And of course, the automatic response that we saw was with the uncertainty and growing uncertainty of these lockdowns and caseloads in each country. We saw a clear-cut thinning out of budgets, whether it was for brand marketing or it was for performance marketing, and it was a knee-jerk reaction, which was expected, right? It was something that anyone would have done, because you just suddenly can't forecast anything. So that was one of the impacts. And what was interesting through all of this was that certain low-lying categories started surfacing. And by low-lying, I don't necessarily mean, they were too small and bubbling under. You can even call them the sleeping giants, or categories which were possibly going to see massive growth in the next coming quarters or years. But with the COVID situation, it got fast-tracked. And that led us to the emergence of EFGH. So natural progression when it comes to the English alphabet, from ABCD to EFGH. But in this case, unlike ABCD, EFGH really means something. And I think I'm going to just go over some examples of clients that we have worked with at Affle within the EFGH categories. Some of them are really a classic example of bubbling under clients who were, or companies who have not really gotten that type of an exposure yet, would have planned it out in the near future, but because of the pandemic, it got accelerated. And then there are some which were already big within those categories, but still saw a considerable amount of growth. And these categories would be entertainment and education. So some of the examples of apps that we have worked with within Southeast Asia. F, fintech and food. Again, a couple of examples of our clients. Gaming and grocery, that's for G. And followed by H, which was primarily health tech. So these were our EFGHs during the prime COVID period. I'm hoping that the prime period is gone. And I'm just going to basically touch up on a few of these examples where you can clearly see the growth that these apps or these categories have experienced during the COVID periods compared to before that. So from a timeline point of view, what we have taken is the periods of January to April 2020 compared to the period of May through August 2020 to give a clear-cut comparison of purely on the numbers, what they have achieved. And this data is from Apptopia. So it's publicly available as long as you have the accounts and access, can be accessed in much more detail over there. Here, I just wanted to showcase the actual growth with very basic numbers in terms of number of installs or how the MAUs have grown, etc. So for View, again, OTT. And I think we now definitely would have 2-3 different types of OTT platforms downloaded onto our phones. I, to be honest, used to have one. Now I've got two. So this has clearly led to a change in the user behavior and requirements. So for View, we've run campaigns across markets, not just Southeast Asia, in many other markets as well. And this data is specifically for Southeast Asia. And if you look at the number of installs that we saw for the Jan to April period was 34,000. It was more than doubled during the May to August period in 2020. On the education side, we have featured an academy here. We have worked with Zenius in Indonesia as well. I just I wanted to just showcase one for today. So over here as well, you could see a clear jump in terms of numbers during those said periods as well. So about a 32% jump in terms of installs within a same kind of period, just the next quarter. And this was again because people started, upskilling, signing up for courses. I did a few, which I had never done, to be honest. I never thought I would actually take up a course, online course, which would require 20 hours to be spent stretched out. But because there was more than enough time, and weekends were pretty much spent at home, I actually took the opportunity of doing that as well. Within the fintech and food category, so GCash is one of our clients as well in Philippines, a very well-known e-wallet company. And again, you can see more than double in terms of acquisitions within 2020 compared between the Jan to April and May to August period. So more than double clearly. And for Grab Food, you can see clearly this is again across Southeast Asia, from an 8.5 million acquisitions within the Jan to April period. It jumped by about an increase of about 500,000 in the May through August period in 2020. When it comes to gaming, of course, there's only so much I can stress how viral games, especially mobile games, have gone. A lot has moved, and this is from our clients. We worked with Garena quite closely. We worked with other clients which are in the real money gaming business as well, across different markets. But we just wanted to pick two games here which have shown a drastic increase in the number of acquisitions. In this case, Clash of Clans, which is quite popular, and Legacy of Discord. You can see from Clash of Clans from 3 million users acquired during the first 4 months of the year to 4.7 million acquired in the next 4 months. And similarly for Legacy of Discord, for the first 4 months of the year, 35.6 thousand users acquired to a massive jump in the next 4 months, which is 126,000 plus users acquired. Finally, to health tech. Now, this is a classic example, and I think what HelloDoc has shown is really an amazing improvement or growth overall compared to last year. So what they had last year was a total of 2 million monthly active users towards the end of 2019. And that has shown a tremendous 9-time increase in growth to 18 million monthly active users at the end of September this year. Of course, when it comes to health tech apps, there was a direct relation to the situation we were. A lot of people relied on prescriptions and recommendations, discussions through these health apps to avoid going out, to avoid going to clinics and hospitals, which will be your areas of concern because of the patient flow and obviously COVID cases being treated in those hospitals or clinics. So in this case, not only HelloDoc, but we had other clients. For example, HelloDoctor in Indonesia as well showed a tremendous amount of growth during the COVID period, and they continue to grow. So that's pretty much the EFGH categories, some of the examples that Affle has directly worked with the clients. Now, a quick gist of how app marketing, or basically performance marketing, helped EFG categories, and I think it's pretty straightforward. We still were driving high-scale acquisition across channels, whether it was your network platforms, which is direct publishers, or programmatic platforms. There was also OEMs, which on the Android side are quite popular. And then there are discovery and recommendation platforms, like Affle owns one such platform called AppNext, which is quite popular in this area. So discovery and recommendation within certain select OEMs. So a number of different channels were driving this high-scale growth during the COVID period. Of course, there was streamlining of audience targeting again, as performance marketers or advertising platforms. We had to go back to the drawing board as well in order to sustain such a scale requirement. We had to figure out, obviously utilizing and leveraging off of DMP data, which audiences are ideal, where do we do lookalike targeting, when do we target users for this particular app, etc., etc. So all of those came into play. We were also constantly driving lower funnel KPIs, which was way beyond your just plain simple user acquisition or app install type of a KPI. But we were driving transaction-driven KPIs. We were driving sign-up-driven KPIs, and so on and so forth. So further down the funnel, where even the advertisers could clearly see value in the form of revenue or future revenue, if not immediate. And of course, this goes without saying, leveraging off of the current need of customers. I mean, we were fully aware that in most of the markets, people are at home. There's a lot of device consumption happening. There's a lot of screen consumption happening. So with smartly placing ads and driving the relevant ads to the relevant audiences, worked as well, which in any scenario would work. But because again, the EFGH categories were very relevant to these times of COVID, so that also helped a lot. Now, just a bit of an industry fact sharing. This is data from App Annie. And you can see how massive the changes and the growth really has been compared to last year, or at least certain halves of last year to this year. So there's been a total of 25% increase in app downloads. This is again comparing the first half of 2020 versus the second half of 2019. The overall consumer spend within the first half of 2020 was a staggering 50 billion, and this is again worldwide. Then this is really interesting. The hours spent on mobile worldwide for the first half of 2020 was 1.6 trillion hours. And that is like a 70% growth. And it should not surprise anyone, because we consumed a lot of screen time during especially the early 4 to 8 weeks of lockdowns in everyone's home countries or wherever they are based. So that's a given fact. And now, where do these EFGs really go from here? Obviously, I think one of the important things that EFGH categories need to look at is to increase their spends or increase their focus on retargeting, because a lot of these apps have gone through massive growth scale or acquisition scale through the COVID period. It is very, very important to drive high lifetime value out of those users as well. While they're doing it, they should, and I'm sure will, continue acquiring new users at relevant pace. They can also look at market expansions. Especially in a tightly knit geographical region like Southeast Asia, where consumer behaviors and consumer requirements or appetites are quite similar. Companies can look at going across borders. And then service improvements as well. And a classic example of this was Zoom. At the early stages of the lockdowns, there were controversies that Zoom wasn't safe, etc. But how quickly they scrambled and did the debugging and upgrading of services to make sure it was safe, secure, user-friendly. So, and I'm not saying that the EFGHs are not doing that. They're doing that, and I think they should continue doing that, because that is going to determine how much of a future-proofing they would have done for their respective businesses. And lastly, I guess constant evolution is any which way a part of digital businesses today. They will continue to evolve, and I think with what our experience of 2020 has been, there's going to be extra focus on mitigation strategies for such unforeseen events in the future. With that, I would like to end the discussion, the presentation, and also hope that we really don't have to encounter these kind of times in the near future or ever in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Modi. That was a great session.
Thank you, Hari.
Yeah, we'll just wait for you to turn on your camera. We have questions that have come in as well. Close to 5 questions which we can go through. It's all mobile related, interesting questions, Modi. So to start with, Gaurav, fraud integration is imperative considering open banking APIs, picking up acceptance. What is the best way to keep FRM integrations with open platforms protected? I think it's more a question.
Yeah, I'm reading it on this as well.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, I think when it comes to banking apps, and this is, and I'll go back a couple of years when we started working with banking apps, or at least we were pitching banking apps and fintech apps for performance marketing business, because everyone was coming up with apps, and of course they needed to acquire users. There were concerns at that point in time because all these apps would not allow any sort of tracking because of critical data and user information or transaction data, etc. But things now have changed a lot from back then. I remember speaking to various banking clients directly or through agencies, and them clearly saying no to any third-party tracking, because they wanted us to drive their performance marketing campaigns, but they did not want any tracking on that. Now, the tracking tools, the tracking mechanisms are a lot safer. We see most of the banking, and we are now, at this point in time, working with a lot of banking apps, whether it is in Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and they have third-party tools in place, because that's the only way you can attribute traffic to a partner. That's the only way you can make sure that there is no fraudulent traffic to begin with. So a lot of those things are in place now. And I think third-party tools are the best way to go. We don't provide our tracking tools at all. It is always a third party that is trusted both by Affle as well as the client. And I think that is the way of the future. And we've seen it. We've seen it grow across the board for banking apps, insurance apps, as well as fintech e-wallet apps.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, Moody. You touched upon, tracking traffic and the affiliates, or the attributing the traffic, right, to the channels. So I think the next question leads nicely to that. It's from Shiyun, our co-organizer. With the deprecation of IDFA, how should marketers shift their mobile marketing strategy, specifically for iOS? I think that's the most common, prominent topic now.
Yep, it is. It is. And I wish I had a solution for this situation immediately. But yeah, I mean, look, we work in markets where there's a fair share of iOS traffic, or there's a fair share of requirement of acquiring users on iOS phones or iPhones. But the IDFA situation has, kind of hindered that process, but there are ways around it, definitely. So there are, obviously, so for example, the MMPs, the mobile marketing partners, whether it is the apps flyers or the adjusts, etc., they're figuring out ways to still be able to track traffic on iOS devices. We don't have an ultimate solution as of now. But I think we are clearly working towards it. It is gonna peg back, let's say, the numbers we were generating on iOS as a platform compared to Android. But the work around it is a work in progress. And once we have gotten to a level, I think the solution will be out there. But at this point in time, of course, clearly an area of concern. And I wish I had an actual answer to that, because I don't. I get asked by clients on that as well. And to be honest, there's a lot of clients who are aware of this. And we are working in markets where any which way Android has a bit of an upper hand in terms of OS distribution. So they are spending more on Android, at least for now. So as the iOS penetration grows in most markets, obviously there will be a solution in place. I just don't know when.
Got it. Moody, thank you. Next question is from Hasik. What was the main pain point when dealing with the companies from different verticals during COVID? Right? Were there any transferable learnings across verticals that you and your team managed to leverage on?
Yeah, I think.
EFGH?
Yeah, absolutely. But also talking about the pain points, it was a very tricky period at the start of, let's say, the month of March, because everything turned on its head compared to what our strategies were, what we were thinking, our planning, our pipelines, our forecasts, and a lot of the retail side business, especially the brand plans, the branding campaign plans. Where we were driving awareness campaigns and all that, they were just completely shut out, because, like I said earlier during the presentation as well, the uncertainty was very, very real. And when you were, for the first time in most of our lives, I guess, you would be hearing prime ministers coming onto the TV or health ministers coming onto the TV and giving you guidelines of you can't step out of the house, out of your houses. So things like that were really the issues to begin with. But we went back onto our respective drawing boards, figured out what are the categories, and I think it wasn't rocket science. It was very obvious which are the categories that are going to make the most out of this situation. Um, uh, that good old saying goes, one man's loss is another man's gain. So we kind of did have an idea that, of course, we're not going to focus on chasing clients who are travel apps or hotel booking apps, or at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, even ride-hailing apps, because people were not going out and they were not even allowed to drive. And it was like, one person per car rule and so on and so forth. So automatically we went into these categories, which made sense because every one of us was ordering food home, was ordering things, whether it was sanitizers or masks, through e-commerce platforms. And of course, we were buying more content off of OTT platforms. So I think it was a very natural progression, but it did have its nerve-wracking few days, I bet. And we were also trying to figure out, because you didn't know what the extent of the pandemic and the impact of the lockdowns was going to be.
That, Modi, yeah, the customer behavior changed entirely, right, in terms of the normal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Next question is kind of related as well, but more on the verticals that were affected. How can brands such as retail or others affected by COVID leverage app marketing to keep engaging and grow customers? Does mobile app marketing make sense for them at the moment?
Yes, not necessarily go into app marketing entirely. So I'll give you an example. What we have also seen is a lot of brands have now shifted focus onto either putting up their products on e-commerce sites, sort of creating mini e-com pages within, let's say, a Lazada, Shopee, or Tokopedia, for that matter. So a lot of brands have quickly embraced that. And these are brands who were not e-commerce ready by themselves up until now. But there was also already this movement within brands that they had started seeing the value of setting up their own e-com pages, whether it was the likes of Samsung or even some luxury brands that we've seen, where you could order or even purchase luxury goods off of their website. So it doesn't only have to be app. It can be web-based as well, which makes sense to a lot of them, because for them to be an app-only type of business, they need to have a very, very extensive or robust sort of product portfolio to sell. So if it is a specific brand specifically selling a certain line of items, then web would make sense for them as well. And yes, there are certain, what we have seen as of just within this year, a lot of malls have started developing their apps because you can sort of pre-book, you can purchase using their app, you can navigate through. So an app will eventually become a necessity for everyone. But from a selling point of view, from a business point of view, even web is where we have seen a decent transition within these few months.
That's interesting. Thank you, Modi. Last question, and then you get to choose the best question of what you've got. So this is from Tilai. Sure. Is UAC, Universal App Campaign, the most common channel for new acquisitions in this region? How does other channel perform in comparison to UAC? And do you have any recommendations to advertisers to use that platform other than UAC?
Yeah, well, UAC and Facebook automatically are the two go-to platforms within every app marketer's strategy. I think that's a given. With UAC being there, of course, Google has made inroads into the app marketing or user acquisition scene as well. So yeah, we do come across that a lot in terms of clients already having that as a part of the overall strategic mix. Now, where does it compare with other channels? It really depends. Now, from an Affle point of view, we do understand the limitations of UAC as well in terms of scalability and in terms of pricing as well. So, for example, a network or a direct publisher model tends to be a lot more cost effective for the advertisers, and the type of scale that you're able to get out of those such channels, which is network channels, is tremendous. We have, using network as a model, not just us, but other platforms as well, have driven unbelievable amount of acquisitions on a monthly basis, provided the requirement was such. I think that's the main comparison that I could think of. Then there are obviously other channels which are on the programmatic side, where the quality is really high, but you compromise a bit on the scaling part. I think UAC pegged against the network model specifically. It is very important to know that scale would automatically be the winner, which is definitely high on the network model side. If I was to recommend to advertisers, again, it would depend on the overall strategy. If the strategy was to gain massive scale, driving deeper funnel KPIs at very cost-effective prices, then the network model would be ideal. And we've seen some of our really big app clients within Southeast Asia. They tend to keep all these strategies in the mix. So UAC is there, Facebook is there, then they have network as well as programmatic. So obviously, the more spends you have on a monthly basis, the more leg room you have in order to accommodate all these channels and have a very solid mix. For smaller app companies, strategy might be different. Some of them might feel that there's more value coming out of, let's say, a UAC and Facebook, because the requirement is quite tiny compared to what we see with others. But it really depends. So I'm not going to make an outright recommendation, but if there was an alternative to that, definitely the network model could make sense.
Got it. Thank you. So there is a follow-up question from Gaurav, which you can take it on the YouTube chat, being conscious on time. If you could select the best question, we can announce the winner and get the tech demo started.
Oh man, this is probably the most difficult part, but I think I'm going to have to go with the one where I really did not have a solution, which was Shiyun's question.
Okay.
For the IDFA.
Cool. Shiyun is a co-organizer, so we would, sorry, Shiyun, we would like to, give the voucher for our members.
Fair enough. I think I'll go with Tilai's question, question number 5, about comparison between UAC, etc.
Perfect. Thank you, Mudi. Congrats, Tilai. That's your second voucher. Cool. Thank you,
Really?
Mudi.
Wow.
Tilai has been a regular to us. Yeah. Cool. Thank you all for still hanging on. So we have the most interesting part of the session now. We'll have the tech demo session. So we have Vaitheng joining us from Insider. She's the country lead for Singapore, and she'll be taking us through Insider's growth management platform. So it's so nicely tied in where, we had the first talk on growth marketing itself by Neeraj, then we had app mobile marketing by Mudi, and then we have a platform, a product that kind of helps deliver that. Over to you, Waiting. Thank you for joining us and your time.
All right. Thank you, Harry, for the introduction, and nice to meet you guys, everybody, too. Let me share my screen, and in the meantime, let me give you a very quick background of myself so that you know who I am, and also a quick introduction to Insider. So for me, I'm Whiting. Before Insider, I actually used to be in Zalora as well. So Niraj, I think we have a lot of crossovers. And I was actually running their marketing optimization, personalization over there. So doing what Insider does, but on the client side. And I came over to Insider about 4 years ago when we first started in the APAC market. Used to be an account strategist. So I was looking after our partners or customers in Singapore, Malaysia, as well as Indonesia. And right now I'm the country manager for Insider Singapore. So that's a very quick introduction to myself. And as for Insider, so we are a growth marketing platform. I'm also sharing my screen now, so I think you can see what the platform looks like as well. And what we do is using our growth marketing platform, our main objective is actually to support both product teams and marketing teams to drive business growth across the entire funnel. So again, very closely tied into, I think, what Niraj was talking about earlier, across the entire funnel from acquisition to activation, retention, revenue. And then let me actually jump straight into this as well. While I'm walking you through it, I will also give you guys some context on why we built the platform in this way, and also show you some interesting things that we can do. So just some context, I think we have 15 minutes today, so it will be a very quick sneak peek, I think, of the Insider platform, but I'm really excited to show you guys. I think a few of the key challenges that we hear a lot from the brands, the marketers, product guys that we talk to. The first thing, of course, I think is a pain that we all know, which is that a lot of channels are actually in silo. So when you're trying to engage your customers across marketing channels, like on the web, on the app, which Mudi also covered briefly, on email, on the chat channels that are really coming up right now, like on WhatsApp, Line, Telegram, etc. A lot of the times, both your customer data and also the engagement are scattered in silos. And because of that, one of the things that we did for our product team, actually our vision is to, first of all, build a unified customer profile where we have all of the user data, including their attributes like their birthday, name, interests, as well as their browsing behavior across different channels, all in one place, before we then use that data to drive cross-channel personalization that is, number one, I think both personalize easily so that it's a good experience for our users and our customers. And second thing, of course, for the platform is usability for the marketers and product teams that are also using the platform directly. So this is the context. And beneath all of it, I think you see predictive analytics here as well. We are also very focused on our predictive capabilities because that ties in very neatly into helping the marketers and product teams really do this cross-channel personalization in a scalable way to reduce their manual effort as well. So I'm actually going to jump straight in today to show you one specific part of our platform, which is called the Architect, which is what we use to build these cross-channel journeys and personalizations. And we'll be happy to take any questions. So just drop them in when you have. And let me show you over here some really exciting stuff that we can do. So I'm going to show you here. One thing we do, of course, we start by creating a new journey. And once that happens, actually, I preloaded this so that we can save some time. So over here, you see everything that I'm sharing with you here. I think after that context that I shared, you will see why we built the technology in this way as well. But we are trying to make it as easy as possible. So we actually built pre-built templates that marketers and product teams can use. And these are actually use cases that our teams, our partners have shared with us that are most commonly used on their site. So things like cart abandonment, multi-channel cart abandonment, browse abandonment, cross-sell, welcome. I think these are very familiar to all of you guys as well. And things like reactivation, repurchase, likelihood to purchase. So I think this ties in actually quite well with what both Niraj and Mudi were sharing earlier. So this is how we also execute on it to support our partners to engage and re-engage customers and users. And what I want to do actually is to show you, I will show you guys later on also some templates. So to give you an example of how our partners use such journeys. But I want to start with this DIY journey builder. So this is our DIY space where we can actually build the journey from scratch. And one thing that you see here, it's let me zoom in a little bit because I think it's a little bit smaller this way. So over here, you can see for starting the journey, actually throughout the entire experience or platform where you are creating the journey, our main goal is to make it really easy for marketers, product guys, whoever's using the platform to create journeys over here and also personalize easily as well, like each of the touch points within the platform. So here you can see that this journey starter, there are a few options that we have. So we can trigger the journey to start based on an event. So one common use case would be cart abandonment, for instance, for our e-commerce partners. If users have triggered the abandoned cart event, we can start the journey here. Or if they enter a certain segment. So segments can be things like static segments, or again, what I was mentioning earlier, these predictive segments is one big focus that we are working on as a company, because again, this helps our partners, users of the platform to be a lot more scalable in the way that they create journeys. And again, there's a lot of things that we can show here, but I'm going to show a very quick sneak peek today so that we can cover as much as we can. And offsite starters are actually when we are connecting, the trigger comes from a system that's outside of the Insider Growth Management platform. One example would be for omni-channel retail partners. If they have an offline purchase that goes into their ERP, they can also trigger journeys to start from there. So one use case as example would be post-purchase warranty. If they want to upsell warranty through their digital channels after an offline purchase, then we would use an offsite starter as a journey starter. And things like user attribute changes. So one example again would be, we can set their category interest as an attribute. So if we know that suddenly this user's interest in the electronics category changes to true, we can then trigger this journey to start nurturing them on our electronics products. And then dynamic date as well would be things like birthday, so triggering based on their birthday or based on an event. Of course, like these are a lot of different use cases. Birthday is probably one, like birthday promos is one very common one. Other things would be like event reminders. So for example, with some of the partners we work with, they have appointments, so they can book appointments, and we can send a reminder, let's say one day before the appointment, for instance. So that's a very quick intro to how we can start journeys. And then from there, actually, over here, you can see the next step of the journey building. We can actually trigger either immediately launching a channel. Usually what we do, let's say, let me just use cart abandonment as an example so that it's simple for everyone to understand as well. So after they abandon the cart, we might want to wait for 30 minutes before we send out the first communication or re-engagement to them. So over here, again, it's really flexible. I mean, the wait time, you can do it for repurchase, for example. We are not going to be sending them after a few minutes. So we probably want to send them after 30 days or 60 days, depending on the repurchase cycle. And one interesting thing is we can also wait until a certain time slot. So one example of usage of this, let's say if for e-commerce partners or for maybe insurance partners, if there's a new policy that's going to drop or that's going to come only on 30th of October, we can actually wait till that specific day to send out that communication. Or for e-commerce, if their new arrivals drop always on Thursdays, and we know that users are in the category or in the segment where they're interested in new arrivals, we can wait till Thursday before we trigger a communication to them saying that, hey, our new arrivals have dropped, so come and check it out. And then over here, after we do the wait element, then of course, before we take action, we'll show you guys that briefly as well. One thing that we can also do is also to check for a condition. So if this is a cart abandonment scenario, for example, we want to make sure that users have not already made their purchase, because if they have already made the purchase, then we don't want to send them this communication anymore. So over here, we can check for an event. We can also check conditions, or we can check their reachability. So reachability is another interesting one, because of course there are a lot of different channels we can engage them. If they are not reachable, we want to immediately send them to another channel instead of trying before we go to the next step. So over here, this one is something that's really powerful. We can actually check, are you reachable on web push? Have you subscribed to us? Have you subscribed to our email? Can we reach you on app push? Can we reach you on SMS before we push you to that part of the journey? So let's say if the first channel we want to use is web push, we can actually check if they are reachable on web push. And if they are, then over here, these are the different channels that we have that we can engage right now. And we are actually adding a lot more channels as we speak. So one of it, I think, is the chat channels that I just mentioned, like WhatsApp, Facebook, Telegram, etc. These are, I think, going to become really widespread soon. So we want to also help our partners to get on it first. And over here, you see web push, email, Facebook, app push, call-in API, SMS. I think we have some product guys and tech guys here in this session as well. So call-in API, basically for any channels that are not available out of the box here, we can also ping APIs, so call APIs, either push or pull, to then trigger engagement on another platform. And let me briefly show you here one thing that is, again, what we do. I'll just show you on the web push channel, but this applies to all of the channels that we have. You can easily do personalization in any part of the engagement and design it directly from here as well. So let's say this is for Uniqlo. Let me show you in 30 seconds. I think we can see this. You can also do, so you can easily upload either a static image, you can use a dynamic image URL, which is things like picking up the last abandoned cart product, for instance. And then you can say things like first name, don't forget your items in cart. And then, of course, emojis, which are nice to look at, but most importantly helps with the engagement, with the open rates and the click rates. And again, like check out before it runs out. So it's really easy to design it here. And then, of course, in terms of the links as well, we can either do static links, let's say bringing them to the cart page, or we can also do a dynamic URL to go straight into their last abandoned product, last abandoned category, etc. So it's really flexible. I won't show everything here, but any part of the engagement or channel design is also easily personalized within here. Once we are done, we click on save. And then over here, we can then, one really useful thing is from here, then we can, of course, wait again to give them some time to digest and maybe decide whether they want to buy it or not. And once again, like, we can check if they have made the purchase. And if no, we can again engage them on another channel. So one really useful thing is we can also decide the next channel depending on their interaction with the first engagement that we sent out. So if they actually clicked on this, then we know that their web push is actually working for them, and we can then use the same channel but send them a different message. But if we know that they only viewed it but they didn't even view the web push, or didn't click on the web push, or maybe they closed it, then we actually want to use another channel basically to engage them. So we might go for email. And one thing that we usually suggest as well as a best practice is to, of course, you can then prioritize the channels by effectiveness and also by the cost, which is, I think, an important business consideration as well, to exhaust the free channels first before you go onto the paid channels. And some other very powerful things that we can do here is A/B testing, which is very relevant to what Niraj was talking about earlier for growth hacking and growth marketing. So we can A/B test channels, we can A/B test content, we can A/B test any part of the journey to make sure that we are constantly getting data and optimizing. Like what Niraj mentioned, these are the small things that later on make a big difference. And one really powerful thing as well is also we are applying our predictive algorithms also into predicting which channel works the best for that specific user. So this is what we call our next best channel, where you can actually let the AI or the algorithm that we have pick the best channel or the most favorable channel for that user to send them next, instead of manually deciding, should I target them with a web push, should I target them with an email? This automatically decides based on the user's past interactions. So there are actually a lot more really cool and really powerful things within this, but I think we are almost out of time today. So just to show you guys 2 examples of journeys before we end this off and see if you guys have any questions. This is how a journey would look like when it's fully mapped out. So this one, for example, is to target users who are highly likely to purchase. Again, based on insiders' algorithms, we are then nurturing them to, of course, nudge them towards the final purchase, since they are already at the lower bottom end of the funnel. And then there is another very common use case is for onboarding, because again, like a lot of users, when you first acquire them, one of the biggest pain points is you spend money bringing them in, but they never convert with you. And this onboarding phase is usually important. So this is, again, another use case that we can run through our architect. So I think that concludes it. And since we only have 50 minutes for today, but I will be happy to take any questions, and we'll be happy also to share any insights and learnings from anybody after the session as well.
Thanks, Wai Ting. I think that was a very insightful session. It ties very nicely with, the presentation that we had earlier. I think we're still waiting for question coming in. We actually have 2 questions now. Question coming in slow, but they're all coming in now. So first question is, Manish, how can we bring in past transaction POS or a certain third-party data set to enhance the offer based on user behavior outside the web and app?
That is a good question. So for Manish, actually for us, we are not exactly a full-fledged CDP, but what we do is similar to a CDP. We have APIs that open APIs basically that marketers or product teams can then use to send any data from any systems that are outside of the insider GMP into our unified user view, so that we can then use that to target the users. Some examples I think that we have implemented, I think, are mainly again for our omni-channel retail partners, like ERP systems, like their sometimes they use like Zendesk or the customer service channels as well. So we have open APIs for this to bring in the data.
So good to know. Second question from Tilai. Thanks for still being here with us. Is there a possibility to real-time stream the communication and response data that you are collecting to other systems for some kind of modeling outside your platform?
Is there a real-time? Okay, got the question. We do have webhooks for some of the channels. So right now we are actually, at the moment, we are building much more on this to be able to send the data in real time as well out. For interaction data, so on the response to communication channels, we do have webhooks that enable us to send this data out in real time as they interact. We are also building some APIs to be able to do data dumps for more bigger sets of data, since we have so much data in our system. So that's also in progress.
So good to know. Third question is actually from our first speaker, Niraj. I feel like this is a sales pitch question. If you had to say one difference between Insider versus CleverTap, what would that be? So it's like elevator pitch.
So I'm actually very familiar with CleverTap also, I think, because we see them a lot in the market as well. I think one difference, there are actually a lot of differences. I think one big thing though is for us, because we, in terms of the breadth of the channels, I think we are expanding to a lot of the new channels very quickly as well. And I would say one of the big competitive advantage against, together with the other platforms out there, I think our predictive technology, our predictive algorithms are really strong. So we built a lot of success cases, and actually we tested out and enhance our predictive algorithms a lot in the past, I would say in the past 5 years or so. So even for app, I think, which Niraj will probably be more relevant for you, things like the likelihood to uninstall the app, and things like tracking other apps that users are using on their phone to be able to target them. There's a lot. Actually, I can share. I think it will take me a long time to share with you all of it. But yeah, I would say the predictive capabilities is one of our biggest competitive advantage in the market.
Great. We have the following question from Yash. Very insightful session, I think. With the existing customers of Insider, which engagement channel has produced the best result?
Oh, that is a good question. Actually, I don't think there is a blanket answer to this question because it depends, I think, very heavily on what type of product it is. So to give you some insight, for example, if our partners are very heavy on the web, we have seen that web push generally works quite well. I think it's a channel that people don't really pay that much attention to, but it has worked quite well. Especially because compared to email, even though email, I think it's quite a standard, already very, how do I say this? Already very established channel. But web push actually helps a lot when we are trying to do urgency messaging because the user experience is much more, there are much less steps involved compared to email. And I think probably the next one that's coming up, which to be honest, I think is still building up, like the new chat channels like WhatsApp, Facebook, Line, Telegram, etc. I think right now those are still in a very exploratory phase, but I think once this social commerce, which is coming up very quickly now, I see that being the next big channels that are going to really come up in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yep. Especially in China, I'm really impressed, right? Like how one of the, social commerce broadcaster was able to generate sales in a day, a total sales for Carrefour in a year. So that's something to look after.
Yes.
Genway, question from Genway. In your experience, what would be the most effective use case you have seen using your tool to drive growth for your partner?
Again, I think there's no blanket answer to this question because for us, what we usually do is we typically will try and understand first what is the challenge or what is the objective that our partners are trying to achieve before we suggest the use case. So I think it depends, quite similar to what Niraj mentioned, I guess, at the beginning as well. Depending on the problem statement, we will then suggest the use case accordingly. But I can share more ideas and ways separately also. Yep.
So we have the 6th question from Yash, which is actually very similar to Niraj's question. So maybe I'll just give it a skip because I think you answer it. 7th question is from Niraj. Does Insider allow data to be stored as quick stream data on client sites BigQuery?
So Niraj, I think this is the one that we are actually right now. So we can do data dumps. So we can actually send this over. And right now we are also in the midst, our product team is in the midst of building APIs that allow us to send this data on a regular basis as well, rather than doing data dumps. So possible. And we are also trying to build a more scalable way of doing it.
So good to know. I think Niraj will probably reach out to you very soon to find out more. So, okay. So I think now it's time to pick the best question. There's a special request from Jeremy, who is actually the mastermind behind, all the streaming that we have here. No question, no prize for Niraj. So if you can just pick the best question of all the questions that is being asked here, that would be great. So the first question that we have is from Manish, transaction data, POS. Second is from Tilai, in terms of real stream communication data. We have Yash on, which engagement channel produced the best result. We have Genway asking you, the most effective use case. If you can just share, who do you think deserve the $50 cash voucher?
Okay, now I know why Mudi and Niraj say that this is the most stressful part. Okay, so I think if I were to pick, I think I would have to go with, I guess Silai already got one from the previous session, right? So I think the one from Manish is one that we get very often actually. So I would pick the one from Manish.
So congrats, Manish. Please reach out to us to redeem your cash voucher. And I just want to thank, all of you who are still with us, at this point of time. Just want to thank the speaker, Niraj, Mudasir, and Whiting for sharing, such an insightful session on growth marketing, on performance marketing, all the community that's tuning in from Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. You guys have been, really supportive, and that's the reason why all of us are still doing this outside of our day job. We are constantly looking for good speakers, good demo sessions, volunteers as well who are interested to run this as a passionate project. Feel free to reach out to us if you are interested to actually be part of Digital Analytics Wednesday. Of course, Digital Analytics Wednesday will not be possible without all our sponsors. Just want to give a big shout out to all our sponsors. Thank you very much. eClerx, Happy Marketeer, Decision Science for supporting us. We're so blessed to have all of you supporting us. And before you tune off, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our meetup session, share it with your friends, and also like our LinkedIn, follow our LinkedIn. We usually post updates on LinkedIn as well. It would be really interesting if you can just share with us what are the topics that you would like to listen. And we would normally try to, look out for speakers who actually fit those popular topics. So thank you very much for tuning in. See you all. Take care.